Aloha everyone and welcome to another Tinkers Academy video. I'm your host Kay Elmer and this video is another installment in the series Benefits of Quantum Healing, where I recap various studies commissioned by Leela Quantum Tech on the effects of quantum energy either through products or the quantum upgrade service on humans, animals, and other various things. This study is a new one that just came out where clinicians had studied the effects of quantum upgrade on the human brain. Now you can find this study. It's currently available and it's just released on the site that's called the International Association for Quantum Technology and Frequency Medicine, and links to everything below. So if you're interested in actually reading this study, you can go to this website and find the study here by clicking on the Go To Studies. Go down here and look under here under let's see where they've put that. Okay, under Cognitive and Behavioral Research. You click on that and you can find it right here under Exploring the Potential Effects of 5G Exposure on Brain Activity and Heart Rate Variability and the Influence of Quantum Upgrading. If you want to read the whole study, you click on Click More, and there's the recap of the study, and then the detailed study report is right here. And this is what we'll be going over today. So to give you in a nutshell what the study was, as I said, was just simply to evaluate the effect of quantum upgrade, which is a remote wellness service, on the human brain when exposed to smartphone radiation. The principal investigator for this study was commissioned to the German Foundation for Health Information and Prevention. Now, this is an institute in Germany whereby it was founded by a Professor Jorge Spitz, who is a medical specialist for nuclear medicine, nutrition medicine, and prevention medicine. After acquiring his state doctorate, he was engaged among other positions as head of nuclear medicine at the Municipal Hospital in Wiesbaden and professor for nuclear medicine at the University of Mainz. He runs this institution where he basically measures all sorts of different effects of various things that affect people's health, and then does studies for that. So this is an independent third party that was commissioned by Leela Quantum to study the effects of quantum upgrade on the human brain. For the study in particular, the methods and materials used were there was two specific tools that were used and two specific things that were measured. And it's purely a scientific study that just simply said, hey, what happens when we turn this thing on, under the effects of certain things. So I'll get into that. So the two types of equipment used in this study, the first one was an electroencephalogram, which is also known as an EEG, and this was this is the tool that scientists use to measure the electrical activity of the brain. It records the brain waves, which are tiny electrical signals generated by neurons, your nerve cells, in your brain. And so to understand the concepts here of brain waves, they looked at 5 of the primary frequencies that are running in your brain at all times, and they're known as the delta, theta, alpha, beta, and gamma frequencies that are in your brain. In each case of each one of these frequencies, scientists have measured that it does different things. So as an example, delta is associated with sleep and rest. Theta is also present when you're in a light sleep, deep relaxation and meditation. Alpha waves are associated with being in a relaxed awake state, and beta is when they measure your brain when people are very awake and very alert, and then gamma are the types of frequencies that are measured that are in relations to awareness, learning, and complex cognitive processes. So as your brain does different things, the frequency that's in your brain changes to one of these 5 different types based on what you're doing at the time. The other thing that was measured is heart rate variability, which is a measure of the variation in time between consecutive heartbeats. It reflects the activity of the autonomic nervous system, which controls involuntary bodily functions such as heart rate, breathing, and digestion. The devices specifically used for heart rate variability in the study was the Medalog AR mobile ECG system, which is an electrocardiogram as opposed to an electroencephalogram, which they used an ultra-high density EEG called the ANT Neuro. So these are the two medical devices that were used by the clinician in this study, whereby they simply measured brain waves and then they measured heart rate variability during the study. Okay, now, so the methods and materials in terms of participants of the study, there were 10 subjects, 9 men, 1 woman, and the average age of the participants was 60.1 years. The age range of the participants was 35 to 78 years of age. And so there was 10 of them. The way that they did it was the measurements were taken. So what they did was they started with these individuals and they put on their they're basically the skull caps, and these are the skull caps that have 256 different electrodes that are going to measure every aspect of the brain. And when they were measuring it, they would run this, the test, and they would measure the brain waves and heart rate variability for 10 minutes with nothing turned on basically in a room just like this, a quiet room, so that the participants were not exposed to any outside, stimuli. And so for 10 minutes, they would measure their brain waves and heart rate variability. And then at the 10-minute mark, they would initiate a 30-minute call using an iPhone 15 5G. Okay, and so if you look here at the picture, the phone was approximately 1 centimeter from the participant's left ear. And so they would basically measure for 10 minutes. Then they would turn the phone on and measure it for 30 minutes. And then after 30 minutes, the step 3 was they would leave the phone call running, and then they would run the quantum upgrade for 30 minutes afterwards and take a third measurement. So there was 3 measurements taken before, during the phone call with nothing else but the phone call, and then after with the phone call running. But what happens when you have quantum upgrade running and you're on a phone call, a 5G phone call using a smartphone against your ear? And so now the results are pretty remarkable. So let's walk you through this study here, and I'll kind of show you what the results are. It's a lot of data. It's very scientific. So it's just purely, basically, scientists measuring the effects. There's no editorializing whatsoever, and there's just a ton of minute data that you're probably not, overly interested in, but I just kind of want to walk you through it at a high level, basically on what they did. So this is the summary, which I just sort of repeated in a couple of minutes. And then after the summary, then these were the results. So let me show you, just jump to the heart of the matter, which is primarily going to be, what was the effect. So you can actually see here when they're measuring the brain waves from a graphical representation, and they did the various different tests. They were repeating the tests over and over and over and measuring the impact on each separate brain wave, the theta, the beta, the gamma, that sort of thing. And so right here is when the participants were sitting there for 10 minutes and nothing was going on. And you can see the actual graphical representation of what the EEG is picking up was there's really really no activity going on in the brain. They're just sitting there waiting for 10 minutes. But once right here the iPhone 15 was activated, you can see in every one of these measurements where there was a distinct activation within the brain of the effect of the phone call, which is essentially RF microwave radiation coming off of the cell phone. And you can see where just graphically you can see this, the brain just lit up because the cell phone was activated, and this was a measurement for the first 30 minutes. What's most remarkable, and just from a graphical standpoint, you can just visually see the incredible decrease in the activation that the phone call had actually done to these individuals' brains. And so you can see where you could see every aspect of their brain was just lit up when the phone call kicked in. And then once quantum upgrade was turned on, the actual activity in their brain from the phone call was greatly diminished. And you can see it graphically here by just this, by the amount of colors that are appearing in which that the effect on the brain was diminished and the colors would decrease. Now, to put that into perspective on a brainwave by brainwave standpoint, let me just kind of get into the graphs here, where this is right off the bat. I'm not going to go, incredibly deep, because this study goes really deep into each specific brainwave and there's 12 different attributes for measuring heart rate variability. It's all in the study if you want to see the data. This is just a simple recap, but what you can see here just right off the bat, this is when they measured the gamma rays of the individuals that were participating, and you can see where right here the gray is when they were, when nothing was turned on for 10 minutes, and then as soon as the phone call was activated, there was a distinct increase in gamma wave activity going on in their brain. And then as soon as the quantum upgrade was turned on, you could see that activity was greatly diminished in all the different areas of the individual's brain. So they were actually measuring not only, with 256 electrodes around the head with that little skull cap on, but they were looking at different regions of the brain, the frontal, temporal, parietal, and occipital areas of the brain while they were measuring this. And you could see the different span and the different areas of the brains that were activated, and not only, not in addition to the actual frequency of the wave itself. But what's interesting here is you could see, and this is what's really important, is the gray is without the phone call. And you can see what does a phone call do to your brain? And it just spikes up the activity. And the activity is stress on your brain. Let me just put that really clearly. It's stress on your brain. Clearly, you can see that from the gray to the red when the phone call was activated. And then, of course, once quantum upgrade is activated, while the phone call is running, you can see that activation or that stress that's on the brain, the red area, where it goes into the blue area, where you can see a tremendous decrease in that effect of the phone. Now, it doesn't, I just want to point it out. If you look at these graphs, you can see that it goes down, and from an indication of the blue color, which is when the upgrade is turned on. However, it doesn't go back to normal as if the phone call's not running, but it greatly diminishes. And that's the key point here, is that when you look at each one of these specific brain waves and every area of the brain that was measured, every time that the quantum upgrade was turned on, the results show a strong gamma activation during the call, and any one of the waves. There was a strong activation during the call, and then once the quantum upgrade was activated, there was a significant decrease. So that was the gamma frequency. Again, this was with the beta frequency, and again, the results show strong activations in the beta frequencies without using it. And then once the quantum upgrade was turned on, a tremendous decrease in the stress that was put on the brain by the phone call, the radiation coming off the phone. Now, this one was the alpha. They measured the alpha. Again, what's interesting is that alpha is, this is the alpha state. If you remember the alpha state, as I mentioned, I was talking about this earlier. The alpha state is when you're in an awake state. And so if you're in an awake state, of course, you're going to have a high gray, because that's, they're awake at that moment. And then look at what happens when you turn the phone on. The phone just decreases that awakeness state and decreases that, and kind of puts the people into a different, frame of mind when the phone call's activated. But then what quantum upgrade did was bump them back up to what they should be without the phone call, specifically when we're talking about the alpha waves. And so you can see each time, that the quantum upgrade literally, to a great degree, had reversed the situation that the phone call was imparting onto the brain. Theta is, again, another awakened state. This is your alertness state of your brain. Obviously, you can see the gray area here where each one of the participants was alert during the measurements. The phone call, you can see in this, I guess I used orange in this graph, immediately decreased the awakeness state, or the awakeness frequency of the brain. And then when quantum upgrade was activated, boom, you went right back up. Each one of these participants had gone right back up to, and depending on area of the brain, right, had gone back to an awakened state, specifically in the occipital, and in the central and in the limbic area of the brain was most affected in terms of returning the brain back to its natural state, where the frontal and temporal regions and the parietal regions of the brain were not activated with quantum upgrade. But at the end of the day, at the end, what it says right here is the results show a significant decrease in theta activations with the call, and then of course in 3 of the 6 areas of the brain that was returned back to normal once quantum upgrade was activated. So they go through a lot of math right here, and the scientific evaluations of the different phone states, and these are all the different numbers. They measured every aspect you can imagine when measuring the brain with an EEG, and this is all the raw data that's available in the study to show the level of detail that the scientists had done when measuring the brain against the quantum upgrade and against the phone. Now, when it came to the HRV, HRV is quite interesting, whereas the brainwaves measured I think it was 5 different brainwave states. HRV has up to 12 different states, 12 different aspects and attributes that kind of equate to what, measuring HRV is not just one thing. They measure 12 different things, and it's an aggregate of the 12 different things in terms of output of the various, conditions of the brain, of the body as related to heart rate variability. So again, I just want to point out that heart rate variability right here, it's going to be measuring your autonomic nervous system. And so it's measuring 12 different aspects of that system in different ways. And so this is all the raw data by which they basically had said, hey, let's take a look at HRV. Let's measure every aspect of HRV using their equipment. And then right here, the results show a highly significant effects of 5G mobile exposure through the iPhone 15 on all of the different parameters. And these are the different parameters here. Obviously, this is not a HRV video to kind of explain how all that works, but the idea here is quite simple. They use a very expensive, technology. I think just that one little piece of equipment that they're using for HRV, I think the devices, I looked it up, actually, it runs like $11,000 just for that one system, just by itself, the technology that they're using. So they're measuring the HRV, they're measuring all the different parameters of HRV, and in each case, they noticed that there was a highly significant increase compared to when the phone was turned on, and then when the quantum upgrade was activated, those effects had greatly diminished. So when using the iPhone 15 with the quantum upgrade, in just this particular attribute, the SDNN is highly significant increase compared to the test conditions without quantum upgrade, and then with it, it greatly improved it. And in case by case by case throughout this entire study, in every aspect, in every way that they measured it, they found that quantum upgrade had greatly decreased the amount of stress that was on the brain and stress on the body from an HRV perspective. And I think that's the key takeaway of the study, is that this study measured so much detail about every aspect of your brain and every aspect of your autonomic nervous system with these 2 different technologies, so that it showed an incredible amount of stress placed on your brain and your body, your nervous system, when using a smartphone with a telephone call activated. But when quantum upgrade was turned on, the key here is that quantum upgrade had a measurable and distinct positive effect in reducing the stress on your body from the standpoint of your autonomic nervous system and from the standpoint of your brain when quantum upgrade was running. And it was very, very, very positive. So you can see, this study basically shows all of the data. And that's the key takeaway here, is that this was an amazing study because, it's scientifically based. And the other thing I want to point out that of the study was, this was done, obviously by a third party. However, there was a representative of Leela Quantum Tech there, and then so they would, to activate quantum upgrade, because the clinicians are only using their 2 pieces of equipment, and you've got a Leela representative activating quantum upgrade when it was time to, after the 30-minute mark. And so the most amazing thing about this study was, as soon as the Leela representative kicked off quantum upgrade, it was immediate, instantaneously was seen, a change was seen in individuals' brains and in their heart rate variability. And when I want to say that again, it's so incredibly profound, because this is a remote wellness service. The actual technology for quantum upgrade is located hundreds of miles away. And once it was activated, regardless of the distance, the individuals that had the quantum upgrade turned on for them, the EEG and the ECG, electrocardiogram and the electroencephalogram, they both picked up, the moment the quantum upgrade was activated, it picked up the influence of the quantum upgrade service, and then greatly improved the condition of the body and the brain at the moment it was turned on. And it was all completely documented and measured in this study. And so that is the most amazing aspect of this. And again, in every case, it was a positive effect. And that's kind of really what I wanted to convey. There's so much science and so much technical detail of the study, it's really hard to just kind of recap other than just to say, hey, you know what? When Quantum Upgrade's running, it is an incredible benefit to your health, both to your brain and to your overall nervous system. And so now that study was purely about just, measuring, these two aspects of your body, and they don't editorialize. They don't say, well, this is what that, here's what they just report what they measured. And so that's what I'm trying to say. They don't editorialize and say, well, this is what it means. This is what it means in terms of your health. They just say, these are the readings, here you go. And so what I kind of want to do is kind of just share with everybody, what are the health impacts? And so I just wanted to give you some context. So if just by simply going into Google and taking a look at, hey, what are the negative health impacts of disrupted brainwaves? In other words, the scientists measured and they reported the numbers. That's it. That's all they do. But if you actually put it in the context and say, well, wait a minute, what does that actually mean to our health? And so you just simply go to Google and I ask Google, hey, what is the negative health impacts of disrupted brainwaves? And they basically, other scientists, other studies, all have measured what happens when your brain waves are disrupted. And you can kind of go in here and say, hey, disrupted brainwave patterns, and this is the overall summary by Google, is that, hey, you can have, the disruptive brainwave patterns or brain arrhythmia can lead to a range of negative health impacts, including mood disturbances, anxiety, difficult concentrating, potentially contributing to conditions like depression, anxiety, ADHD, and even psychosis. And so I kind of just summed it up here. This is what the Google response had been. It's a summary of what happens when your brain waves are disrupted, as demonstrated by the scientific measurements that were done in the study. And so the summary here is, if you're disrupting your brain waves, you're basically going to subject yourself to issues such as sleep disorders, learning difficulties, memory problems, social impairment, hyperactivity, cognitive decline, circadian rhythm disruption, brain fog, and negative impact to your autonomic dysfunction, or it's going to give you autonomic dysfunction. So negative impact to your nervous system. And that's what happens when your brain waves are disrupted. Okay, so the scientists measured that's what's, they measured a disruption, but they didn't get into like what would be the, the effect of those disruptions. And so I did it again. I checked with Google and said, hey, Google, well, what happens when what's the significance of heart rate variability to overall health? And so if you want to know how important that is heart rate variability is the natural variation in time between heartbeats. Okay, and it's a valuable indicator of overall health, reflecting the body's ability to adapt to stress and recover, with higher HRV generally suggesting better cardiovascular fitness and resilience. And so Google kind of summarizes a whole bunch of different studies, and it just, when we get into the thing is why is HRV important? And I summarized it here. This is the Google response, where the health impacts of heart rate variability, having good heart rate variability, it's an indicator of overall health. It's an indicator of your cardiovascular health. It's indicator of how well your body can handle stress and its resilience towards stress, your mental health, and it also heavily impacts exercise recovery. So when these two things are affected, which is what the study shows, if you turn on a phone, if you're using a smartphone, you're going to have disruptive brainwaves, and you're going to subject yourselves to these impairments from a brain standpoint, and you're going to subject yourselves to your physical body, basically impairments from heart rate variability. And so the most amazing thing was, as is shown in the study, was that Quantum Upgrade will reduce all of these threats and mitigate the negative impacts of cell phone radiation on your body and your brain by just simply having Quantum Upgrade running. And in the case of having this phone call simultaneously, but you can kind of just think, hey, even if I'm not using a phone call, what are the benefits of quantum healing in terms of Quantum Upgrade running just in my normal day-to-day activity, and how incredibly helpful and beneficial it is. If this is what happens when I've got something turned on, like a cell phone next to my head, well, if I'm just walking around day to day and I've got Quantum Upgrade running, what is it doing to helping me reduce the stress on my brain and my body, just with everyday activity? So this study is an amazing study. It really is, because it just has the raw data that shows the incredible benefits of Quantum Upgrade, and also that Quantum Upgrade works. And so lastly, I just kind of want to leave you with this is now it wasn't included in the study because the study was just the scientists using an EEG and an ECG. However, when checking with Leela, I asked them, I said, what did you guys use for the Quantum Upgrade, in terms of the settings? And so if for those of you who are interested, the settings for the participants was the U subscription. So they were all, plugged into the machines, right? They were all being measured. And then when that 30-minute mark came up, they had a U subscription was activated. The Hawkins level was 800 because this was done during the day. And the frequency that was running was brain support. So there you go. That wraps up that study. It is an amazing, demonstration and further scientific proof by a third-party clinician that was commissioned by Leela to measure the effects, and it showed a tremendous benefit from Quantum Upgrade. So that is, again, another benefit of quantum healing. So thank you for watching this video. Links below in the video description to the study and to any other types of information you want to get in terms of links to Quantum Upgrade and so forth. Thanks again for watching this video. If you'd like to learn more about Quantum Upgrade, you can find it at quantumupgrade.io. And also, if you'd like to learn more about the other benefits of quantum healing, I have a playlist of all the different scientific study recaps and also customer testimonial recaps. I have a playlist of all the different videos in the Benefits of Quantum Healing series available at my blog at the Tinkers.Academy blog. And if you'd like to keep on top of studies that are coming out about Quantum Upgrade and about Leela Quantum products, like and subscribe, and you'll get all the news from Leela as well as their study recaps such as this video. Again, thank you very much for watching. Hope you found this interesting and have a great day. Aloha.